Didn't take my hat off.
6:04 on your left.
I'm going to call to order the, what we're calling it, the committee, Charter Review Committee. We have a little typo at the top. It's not the Finance Human Resources.
So copy and paste our same committee members, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
We're all human, we all do. So I'm going to roll call. I'm here, Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Hello.
And Councilmember Rafter will be absent, as we know. Excused. Yes. So I'm gonna give a couple minutes to our city attorney because he has to run somewhere and he's gonna give us a little bit of insight.
Thank you. I wanted to just give the committee a quick overview of the process and how, what I will be able to do for you on request with regard to anything that relates to the charter. The clerk passed out, and you should have in front of you the publication from the Secretary of State's Division of Local Government Services called Revising City Charters in New York State. This is available online and is available to anybody who is listening to this if they want to see it. It lays out in much greater detail than anything that I can do that talks about how to revise charters. In the state of New York, there are basically two ways that a charter can be revised. The first is by topic. And if you have one topic and you pass a local law, you can change your charter by local law if you address one topic. If you address multiple topics, then you get into the Charter Revision Commission process that goes to a public vote, and there are public hearings. There are also public hearings on the individual local law level, but that's a little more straightforward. One of the things that in my experience, again, because I was city attorney at the time, the major revision that was done now 10 years ago, at the time that it was done, it was recognized by the council and by the commission that did it then that not every single problem in the charter had been. It wasn't a perfect document. They realized that there were things that had issues. So doing this now is not like a big surprise. It's something that's been anticipated, and again, every 10 years, it's not a bad idea to take a look and see where you're at and see what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. In using me as a resource, look at issues. Again, the ad hoc committee question was what brought us here. For example, you look at that. If you see an issue and there's something that you think should be changed and you know what you want to do to change it. And then send it to me and I'll be happy to work on the language, modify it, buff it, do whatever. So that I'm comfortable with it and you're comfortable with it. If on the other hand, you see a problem in the charter and you say, we know where we want to get, but we're not exactly sure how to phrase it, then don't hesitate to come to me and I'll work with you to phrase it, to generate it, and then you can bring it back to the committee or whomever. We can go from there. So just use me when you need me. And again, Carrie is very proficient at putting things together in the proper legal form, and we can have set up the hearings and the public hearings and the publication and all the things that are necessary to implement the modification. So that's where we go from there. But again, most of the questions that you have should be covered in that how to revise a city charter.
Okay.
Any questions, concerns, or things you want to run by me? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So when you say one topic at a time, when we're looking at the charter, sometimes topics will.
Ripple.
Yes.
Yes, and I meant to mention that.
Okay.
It's very important that when you're looking at a charter change, to also say what are the unintended consequences, or what is the ripple effect that this has, not only on other effects in the charter, but also in the code.
Okay.
And there very often is a ripple effect.
Okay.
but as long as you're addressing one topic, you could amend the code, or you could amend the charter and the code. And that would still be okay, as long as it's covering one topic.
Okay,
But again, that's up to you, depending on where you want to go. Okay. But ripple effect is very important, and that very problem is what was recognized by the Charter Revision Commission 10 years ago, because they were aware that there were some internal inconsistencies but they made a massive change to the charter at that point. And so some things they just didn't, they recognized were potential issues, but simply said, if we waited for the perfect document, it would never happen. So this process, what's happening right now, is something that was anticipated, or at least was acknowledged at the time by the people who were drafting it. And again, Dave Risberger was on that, and I think he would acknowledge that they knew at the time that it wasn't perfect, and that it wasn't going to surprise them anything if something like this happened at some point in the future when issues arose.
okay,
Okay.
yeah. So would it be good practice for us to, like, after each meeting, just email you what we addressed and you can?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you do a shotgun,
Yeah,
and I will reply by shotgun. And if you ever want to do a workshop session, just call me and I'd be more than happy
cool.
to be there. But again, one of the reasons that we're here is because when you're interpreting a statute, it should be relatively straightforward. It should be as black and white as possible, but with the understanding that the more black and white you make it, the more problems aren't addressed in it. When you say this is what it is, that means that you've said that all these other things are not what it is. So you have to be a little careful about making it general enough to cover the issues, but not making it so general that you can't interpret it. So when you're putting together a charter, which is a philosophic document as much as anything else, it's important to think about what are the implications, how could this be twisted? If somebody wanted to twist this, how would we address that for somebody who wanted to twist it? But still haven't accomplished what the thought process was of the council when they put it together. So,
That sounds like a lot of pressure. We'll do our best.
well, again, it's not pressure per se. You just have to hone it. You have to say, what's my goal here? And then you say, here's what it looks like the way to achieve that goal. Then one of my jobs is to say, okay, now let me tell you all the problems by saying it this way that arise because you didn't address this and this and this and this and this. So,
Okay, that sounds good
okay.
to me.
Yeah, you just want me to shut up your
I
time.
just want,
Yes, I get it. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks much.
Yep.
I'll enjoy working with you.
Thanks. I just want to say something real quick as we get started. I kind of jotted this down up at work in my lunch hour. But I think it's important to get this out here. The city charter is the most important legal document of the city. The document defines the organization, powers of the organization, functions of the organization, and essential procedures of the city government. Any alterations of this document should not, cannot, and will not be made in haste, or because it's felt that it micromanages or is perceived to be an inconvenience. We must tread carefully in looking at the charter and making recommendations for changes. Some recommendations may be popular, some not so much. We're going to have to ask really hard questions that some may take offense to, or we may take offense to. Please remember that none of what we are doing is personal, but is a process to make sure that the residents of the city of Oneonta are being 100% represented and being provided the best government possible. And it kind of goes with what he was just saying, is we gotta be careful of the ripple effect of everything we're doing. And I don't, when I say haste, is I don't want to sit there and say, oh, this looks great, and then all of a sudden we say this is the recommendation, and all of a sudden we're chasing our tail around and around and around. And don't be afraid to speak up and say, I don't think this is an issue, and we can move on. I got some more, but I know the mayor's here. I don't know if the mayor wants to say a couple remarks first, or.
Well, I wasn't planning to, but I will say, first of all, thank you all, and John, I know we have to be joining us before you know it. Thank you, Scott, for leading this group. It is we all swore an oath to uphold the charter. The charter is the document that is, it's the Bible here for us. This is how we do our jobs. But it was also, as David Mercick was saying, it's a document that was written with the expectation that it was going to be continually looked at and revised and modified, so that it would be an asset in our governance. That it wouldn't be something that through interpretation or disagreement about interpretations might in fact slow down or derail the engagement of this council in providing the best possible governance. And so we've identified quite by chance, it wasn't something that I saw coming, an issue around the ad hoc committees and the interpretation of that particular clause. And then in review of the charter, and like Len here, yours is fairly dog-eared, mine is as well. Yes, yours is as well, right? And I'm sure Katie's, that's the same
My
thing.
home copy.
I mean, yeah. I mean, but there are areas that you look at, areas that I look at, obviously, more than other areas. And then sometimes, there's something to be said for getting the full width and breadth of the thing, to really see, as David Mercick was saying, the ripple effect of a clause or of an intent. And we're in 2022 as well. And that's different from 2010, 2012, the major charter revision, and we're post-pandemic. We are in a place right now in the city where I think there is universal acceptance of the notion that our changing the demographic trend line in the city is our way forward, and also that we're frankly in competition with any number of other municipalities who also understand that. It's not like we found the secret, no one else knows about it. So we have to be nimble. We have to be we have to be a government that can be first in connection with one of the concerns that I've come to be more aware of than I was, is how other municipalities sometimes are able to get in front of us in terms of getting contracts for services, for instance. We are at 13,400, depending on the day, city. We are a small city, but that should mean that we are able to be nimble. We should be able to outperform and outmaneuver other cities, other municipalities. And so what I would suggest is that while this is our Bible, and I take it very seriously as anyone does at this dais, it is created by people with good intent a dozen years ago in its current format. And with that, we need to take a look at this through the lens of almost on a paragraph by paragraph basis, understanding the ripple effect of a modification here or there. Is this facilitating our ability to succeed as a community with the goals that we have? Or is a well-intended, and multi-layered level of oversight and structure counterintuitive in this moment? And you'll be the judges of this. I mean, I'll have my opinion, and Greg and everyone in this community will have their opinions, I'm sure, but you four will be the folks that, you know, make this more of a living and connected document when all is said and done. And I really appreciate your effort, so thank you.
Thanks. Reason for the meeting for tonight is to try to come up with a process that's gonna be, for us, won't be a waste of time. And if we're gonna have city staff and stuff come in, get some of their opinions of people who are directly affected in the charter. Like I'm sure Greg's, his position specifically written in the charter and stuff, and I'm sure he's probably got some feelings on some things that makes it hard for him. So I wanna make sure we get everybody's input that we can, as we go along, because, you know, we're all gonna have to live with this. There will be, I call it homework, so we have to do a lot of stuff at home. We'll come in, we'll pick a topic and then look at it, like right now we know ad hoc committees are kind of what brought us here, maybe we should start there and try to get that done and move back. The bigger ones where maybe there's more of a ripple effect or more of a, well, we're not really sure or something like that, we'll come back and revisit it. You know, we only got a few months to get this done. So, you know, anything I think that tie us down, we can put towards the end, and let's get the quick, easy stuff out of it. None of it's easy, but the quicker stuff out of the way first would be how I would do my recommendation. Floor is open to either one of you on how you think you'd want to do it. Any supplies you think we need, I know Greg attached a copy of the charter to this. I know we're going to be writing up our charters left and right. So if you can think of any supplies you might need, stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of toss it out here to Len and Katie and kind of see what your thoughts and feelings on or how we should proceed.
How often were you looking at meeting?
I was going to say maybe once a month, maybe towards the end of the month. That way, you know, I know we tie down the meetings. You know, if we have to cancel one, we can always, you know, double up a month if we have to. I know we're coming up towards holiday seasons and stuff like that. If we think we need more meetings, I'm open to that, but I think there's gonna be a lot that we can look at, come back with on the topics of where we think we are. We're waiting for responses from other council members or department heads and stuff like that might, you know, that's why I thought maybe if we did it towards the end of the month, we would hopefully have time to get all that stuff. Katie, any thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, I'm just reading through this document from New York State that is supposed to kind of walk us through the process. It says that the first thing that we should do is get really familiar with municipal home rule law. I'm fine with meeting once a month. I mean, this is like the busiest week of my life, and then after that, it's actually a lot better. So, that's fine. We can figure it out. I can be flexible.
That's what I said. I mean, like, I was thinking once a month towards the end. Like I said, I know we're coming up to the holidays.
Yeah, the end of the month is usually a little bit looser too on terms of the city calendar.
And if we think that we need something in between, I mean, I'm not hard set on a time, whatever's convenient for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we could take it, let's see, how many articles are there? 9? How many months do we have?
I don't think
6?
we can on the charter, can we?
I don't
I've
know.
given you 6, but
I don't know if we can do 9 articles in 6 months. Some will go faster than others. Very broken charter. It's been 10 minutes.
I mean, some of it, like C1 is pretty quick. I mean, that's the title of purpose. That's pretty much, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if we come back with homework, really getting hung up on clauses that are red flags to us, then, I mean, do we feel like 6 conversations is sufficient to effectively
I'm
edit
gonna
this
say,
document?
treat this like we did with the, cabinet. So
Gotcha.
we have a goal that's been set, but if we don't meet it because we're more in depth in obtaining a better document, then I'm sure the mayor will not mind that we go past April.
But that cabinet met regularly and it was a work group.
Right, and I think there was times where we met more often than regular schedule because we felt that there was a need. So, if there's a need, moving forward.
And that's why I kind of wanted to be kind of, not so stringent that says we're meeting twice a month, because we might show up and be like, we're waiting for responses back, or, So like, tonight I probably, even though we're not up to the city administrator part yet, I'd probably look at Gary and be like, you may want to start looking at that and kind of start jotting down notes, so, what your feelings are. And I think Greg's probably into this charter just as much as we are for things, and maybe, Greg go through the whole thing. I'm sure he's been through it just as much as us, and let us know, what concerns you have. And, I know it's 4 of us, but I'm gonna include you as being the 5th member.
So look on page 10 at the bottom right hand.
Page 10 of the charter.
No, rather of the revising city charter. That may be your plan for a charter commission. That might provide you some beginning structure.
Carrie, is it possible to get a copy of the New York State Home Rule Law?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like cutting a tree down.
There are summaries.
PDF.
You want the cliff notes like in back in high school?
If it's too many pages, then yeah, let's just have a digital file.
That's not a problem.
Thank you. Because even in our city charter on page 6, it mentions it.
Yeah, it's like one of the first things out on the charter on page 5. City's full home rule.
Well, this is about drafting a charter from scratch, not about revising a city charter.
Right, there's, when I was online and I found this to have it print off, there is some things in here, such as like Dave was talking about, the one items, and, I just thought it'd be good of information to, to read, to, if we have to go to public referendum, what might be in there versus what's kind of, we can do this, or.
Oh, I already know so much more about revising a charter than I did 20 minutes ago, so this is a great document. But I don't think that all of it is applicable.
No, not all of it is, but I think it's a good thing that if we have a question, is this part of what we're trying to accomplish? It does go through, I know there's a section here that kind of goes through what we are with a council, mayor, and city managers type system. And it kind of explains that. There's also, talks about strong mayor versus, so that stuff's in there too, which is nice to have.
Yeah, issues that may or may not be especially troublesome. The distribution of authority between the mayor and the legislative body with respect to the exercise of the appointing power. That's like why we're here. So that's great.
That's why I said this is just like organizational, was to get some stuff out there, kind of feel out, like what your concerns are, if Lynn had some concerns right off the bat, or Councilmember Carson, sorry, or shoot, any, right off the bat that, we like a thing that we should look at very first because it's a,
Sure. I mean, I think, if we're here because of the ad hoc committee thing, that's probably gonna be, in my opinion, that's probably the thing that we wanna look at first. think for me, when I look at that, just kidding, it's under the mayor. Why don't I look at the page 8? Members of boards and commissions. I think for me, when I read this, advisory boards and other ad hoc groups, that's what it is. I was like, that's not right. The final two sentences of that are the most problematic for me. I think it says, may appoint residents of the city to such boards and commissions with the approval of the common council. I don't know why those commas are there. That really bothers me, but that's okay. But it says the mayor may appoint residents of the city, but then it says, and I think, obviously it says with the approval of the common council. That's pretty straightforward. But then the redundant clause is the mayor may appoint residents of the city or non-residents, yada yada. Obviously, that doesn't have the approval of the council, but we know that if non-residents are appointed to things, we have to approve them. So what do those two sentences say about each other? And like Dave said, what's the goal? What do we want it to say going forward? And how do we think about how that will play out in real time? Because the first sentence says residents, the second sentence says residents or non-residents. The first sentence says with council approval, the second sentence does not say with council approval. Does that mean we only need to approve residents of the city, but we don't need to approve the non-residents? The whole thing is nonsensical. It's like Dr. Seuss wrote it, but it's not even fun.
I read that those two sentences, the first sentence that's referring to specifically boards and commissions, the second sentence referring to specifically ad hoc groups.
Ah, okay.
That would be the difference.
Okay. Citizen advisory boards and other ad hoc groups. So maybe it's just out of place.
Yeah, I think they're,
Well,
there's a
still has-
distinction between the three.
Right.
Well, boards and commissions are kind of lumped together, and ad hoc groups are a little bit.
Still conflicting.
Yeah.
And then it's also, I'm sorry to jump in here, but it's also a case of what is the best intent here? I mean, what is it that we want?
Right.
And, I referenced the fact that there are any number of committees and staff here in the city that are also forming or have formed ad hoc committees. Are they not within the purview of of the council as the mayor is, but they're not?
Yeah, well, I think as a member of the council, the mayor acting independently of the council is different than a staff member saying, I need X work done, because that's within the scope of their job description.
Well, is it though? I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over here.
Oh, sure. I mean,
But
Chris
just-
Witzenberg putting together a
Yeah.
citizens advisory
Yeah,
board.
or the what's it, the water front.
Watershed Advisory.
Yeah, watershed advisory council, thank you. And any number of other,
Yeah.
kind of iterations.
But we've approved the watershed advisory, or we've approved the watershed revitalization project, I'm using the incorrect term, as a legislative body, we approved that. So then Judy's working on that. So then for her to say, we need X, Y, Z, that's different than the mayor independently putting together commissions and task forces for things that have not previously been approved by council. Does that make sense? Because the scope of Judy's work is defined, and it's largely defined by council action. The scope of the mayor's work is independently defined for the most part. We don't necessarily tell you what to do.
Right.
So I think that keeping the council involved in the action that the legislative body's taking makes sense.
So would that be, and again, I'm gonna butt out in a second, but
Are you?
because this is I'm gonna try.
I know, I
Well, the ad hoc thing
and I
directly
feel like
affects
this
what
isn't
you're.
the
Yeah, I mean,
last.
that did precipitate as we started having the conversation, David Merzick and I, and others about, you know, some of the language in the charter, not just that particular, this is just the one that bubbled up,
Right,
right? Early on, in fact, the conversation I had with our city attorney in the first week of January was, what can I do? Because as everyone knows, when I ran for this office, it was with the expectation and, you know, I presume a mandate, to engage as many people as is possible in the process of, you know, assisting with, you know, strategizing.
yeah. I mean, can I just say that personally, I really appreciate that strategy. I think where it goes off the rails for me is when legislative priorities are being set and people are being brought in and the council has no idea about it.
So, what, I'm not gonna contest that, but what I would say is that maybe what the charter might be looking for from the mayor would be information,
Yeah,
as opposed to the ability to, because would the council ever say, I see you're putting together a group of volunteers, we don't want you doing that. You know, it'd be hard for me to
Right. I
envision
mean,
that that'd be the
personally-
case.
Depends on the-
But maybe that there's a reporting expectation that should be, you know.
and I think it should be based on established legislative priorities.
That's a hard one.
Well, we can, I mean, that's, so, I promise you short. So why don't we,
Yeah, we only have, we have to leave. We will get kicked out.
so why don't we do this, before our next meeting, let's go through the charter real quick, just read it front to back. We'll stop at the ad hoc, because that was, you know, when it really brought us here first. In that time, I will put out an email to our other council members about ad hocs and committees and what they were saying, get their feedback, what, you know, their holdups and stuff were, and then we can sit down and we'll work strictly on the ad hocs for our first one, committees, and try to not get that one out of the way.
But you want us to kind of assess where we
Yeah,
think
just to
other
make
things might be.
Because we're gonna have to keep going through the charter to make sure that when we change one thing, we're not, you know, having that big ripple effect through it. I don't think ad hocs will give us a big ripple effect, because it's pretty much ad hocs and the committee and,
They sort of
which also,
operate
I mean,
safely.
but if we change one thing there, it may end up changing something in the mayor duties, so we gotta go back to the mayor duties and kinda know what the mayor duties are in the back of our head, or it might put something, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, with the ad hocs, I don't think it really will affect our city administrator, but I think it could, depending on what we're doing. So, those two there would really need to, and the city clerk's office gets, I know they're in here with committees and what they have to clerk and stuff like that for us on board, so we have to kinda, those are the three that I can think of right off that fact when we're talking about committees, the three departments that are directly affected. You know?
Yeah.
And I just wanna be careful as we do this, you know.
I think we also need to, I think there is a definition for ad hoc, but I think that we need to make sure that it's included, and how that differs from boards. I mean, maybe we should just, at the beginning of that, is that in the boards and commissions thing, section? A board is X, a commission is Y, and ad hoc is Z, because I think that there's been some fuzziness around that as well. Specifically, right, with calling the housing subgroups ad hoc committees. I know you see them that way. I know Councilmember Risberger does not see them that way. I don't know how to see them because I don't know that it's defined here in a way that is black and white. And I think that's one place where we sort of could get black and white, because if we're defining a noun, right? Like, that noun has boundaries. So, I think that would be helpful as well.
So, go through, write that down.
Okay.
We'll have that for our next meeting, and we can sit there and actually work on that section, draft something up. Hopefully, we'll have consensus on something. We can try to get something drafted up as we're starting to move on to the next thing. We can get that kind of looked at and polished up between everybody here and our city attorney. Sound like a plan? Because we're gonna have to multitask to do this. Everything we're doing is gonna be, as one goes away, we're gonna work on another one, and then that will come back to make sure that's how we want it, and then move on, so. Ray, you got any procedure things you wanna see done, or?
Nothing right now. Like I said, I'll read through the charter myself again.
Now that you made,
Participate in discussion along the way, but I'm gonna follow your guys.
I feel like now that you made that distinction for me about those two sentences, this makes sense, but it is very like dizzying to read. But like, yeah, residents to boards and commissions, not, residents or non-residents to ad hoc groups. There's no group for ad hoc groups. I think what's really missing is the definition of an ad hoc group.
Boards and commissions are defined in the section.
Yeah,
Ad hoc and not.
yeah,
So maybe we gotta put a definition for ad hoc, and I mean,
Yeah.
that'll help be the polishing part that we need,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I still think we could clean up that language, because that's what's in my brain.
Council, any questions about anything we should?
I just still see conflict within this page 9. To the two sub groups that we keep looking at, there's conflict. The removal of board and commission, the mayor has authority, and then into the next group has no authority. It's just a little.
Yeah, so we can work on that. We move those into the ad hoc thing.
Do we need to list all the current boards and commissions in the charter?
They are listed in.
I know, that's what I mean. Is it necessary? It's C-17, section B.
I don't know, maybe that's a question for the city attorney, but the fact that they have terms of office, that sort of thing, I think
Okay.
it probably makes sense to.
Yeah. Well, we can
Yeah,
read
we
this,
can
and see
talk
what's in
about
there, we can shoot off
Just
email
one.
to the city attorney.
Relative to terms of office, which is an interesting distinction, as long as it's just come up real
Sure.
quick. So boards, commissions, they have terms of office. Whereas, again, the ad hoc committees have not properly been defined. But we know that they in fact don't have any expectation of a length of a term, or a set number of members, or much outside of their accomplishing a specific goal that might be tasked for them. So, again, one more distinction, but that just came up, I thought I should chime in.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could put into that section, whether it's in the definition or in the terms of office, if we say, boards and commissions versus ad hoc. Sorry, that was
No,
out loud.
First one, there wasn't a lot to put on to organize, and then we just kind of jumped right into it, which is good.
Yeah,
Which is, how it's kind of gonna go. It's gonna be conversations back and forth, and like I said, it's kind of school all over again. Kind of a lot of homework here.
so our homework is, Scott, do you want to just run through it one more time so we're all prepared?
We're gonna read through the charter again, and then we're gonna come back to the next meeting. We're going to specifically look at the ad hoc committees, and the other
Municipal home rule law.
municipal home rule law, and kind of see if, as we start fine tuning ad hocs, if that's gonna go into other boards and commissions, if there be any ripples into that or not. Come back with your ideas and how you kind of, maybe like a definition, if you want to see a definition in there for ad hocs, we'll just see if we can polish that up and try to get at least that to the attorney for his to go over as we pick out our next topic that we're gonna do and start working on.
Cool, I'm excited. I wasn't before this. I mean, not that I wasn't, but now I'm like, now I am.
Did you want to set a meeting for
Let's
next
do it.
month?
November, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Carrie.
Roll call.
I don't have the city calendar, Carrie. No, it's.
I have the city calendar. If you're looking at the end of the month, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that that would put you at almost 2 months without moving. So if you're looking to stick with the end of the month, that's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be a
So
lengthy
it's the
time frame.
Should we meet at the end of this month and then at the end of November, and that gives us one other sneaky meeting?
Did you already with that one, or you? I just want to make sure we have enough time, or would you maybe try to meet towards the second week into November, and then we can slide another one in towards the end of November?
Council's second and fourth.
Yeah.
Finance is first and third. Airport is third Wednesday. Economic development, you're right, kind of the way around. First and third, second and fourth. And then economic development, we're at the end of the month.
Uh-huh.
Since this
I also
is
have
the
parks and
finance committee
arts.
membership, does it make sense to just, after the finance committee, go right into this? Well, I guess that would force you to 6 time frame somewhat, maybe not, for your finance meeting, if it goes long, you start this a little late.
That's
Rather
fine
than
with
another
me.
night with another meeting.
Yeah, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, because then if we wanted to do a second meeting, we could just kind of keep following finance.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say about trying to do 2 meetings in November is that the last week in November is Thanksgiving,
Mhm.
so beginning and end is really tricky with Thanksgiving, or with.
Since you're going into, because November's a holiday, how about why don't we do for the first one in November, go right after finance?
After the first,
I don't know if we can do it before, I think is there,
Legislative committee is prior to finance,
unless you want
so
to come in
that's the
like,
14th.
the 7th.
unless you want
Which
to
one
come
is
in like 4 o'clock.
Parks was moved to the 14th.
Okay, oh, I just had it backwards, sweet.
The 10th is also wide open. There are no meetings on the 10th right now.
What day's the 10th?
It's a Thursday.
You're all right with the 10th?
Finance is on the 7th.
Katie, all right with the 10th?
Yes?
I mean,
What
it
time
gives
do
you
you guys like
a
to start?
3 nights of meetings, but
What's that?
as telling council member, it gives her 3 nights of meetings, but
Yeah. But I get election day off, so that'll be fun. Okay, yeah, that's fine with me, the 10th. At what time, 6?
you tell me, it's wide open.
Want to do 6, want to do 7?
Can we do 7?
Sure,
That would be, I think, a little bit easier for me.
okay.
Thank you. Charter, 7, my phone defaults to 7, because that's when all our meetings are.
All right, anything else before we adjourn for the night?
Wait, when is housing? Second Wednesday?
Housing is the second Wednesday. So public arts will be at 6, housing will immediately follow at 7.
We're having a good time. That's good.
And Greg, I think your nights are gonna get longer for a little bit, I apologize.
It's so long every now and then.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'm gonna